Good morning. Excellent performance begins with clear expectations. When you have clear agreements, when you have clear commitments, when you have excellent goals and plans, you're much more likely to get excellent performance. But once you have that excellent performance, when you have those clear commitments and agreements, what happens? What do you do when someone lets you down? When someone doesn't deliver? When someone behaves badly? For example, you have worked and worked and worked on this proposal with one or two of your colleagues, and when you get to the big meeting with the big boss, you're going to say, we need to make these changes in the budget. So you're leading a discussion, you get right to that point of change, you're going for the rehearsed support, and it's like they clam up. Oh, you're feeling horrible. You're saying, what, do they have genetic mute? I mean, when they let you down, how do you feel? When someone doesn't deliver, I mean, that report you need, you've made an agreement every Thursday at 3 o'clock, and it comes in randomly on Friday morning. How do you act? Or at home, you know, you've got the agreement that this child is going to do, this 11-year-old is going to do his homework. And so he's watching TV or doing Game Boy, and you say, hey, you made a commitment to do your homework. He said, why are you always picking on me? And he throws the thing down, stomps off. And you say, oh, what do I do? All of these kinds of issues, again, in the corporate setting, in the home setting, at the team setting, all have a similar set of skills. And they're applicable everywhere. I like to say that these skills only work if you work or live with or near other people. Other than that, they don't work. I'll do that one more time. They only work if you work or live with or near other people. These skills don't work with hermits, but everybody else. The alternatives for dealing with these issues when you're let down, when there's a broken promise, when there's a violated expectation, is one you can avoid. Avoidance is epidemic. In one of the research studies we did in healthcare, and you can go read it at silencekills.com, we studied hospitals and the behaviors they do there to work on results. And we found that people every day in healthcare stand next to coworkers and colleagues and don't say anything. What's the issue of when you have a violated expectation, when you don't get an agreement in healthcare? No one will speak to a physician, and only 10% will people will speak to nurses. This is a big issue. Avoidance is epidemic. But then it builds up and it builds up, or sometimes because of the urgency and the emotion, or being carried away by the moral certainty that it's our time to be right, being hit by a big shot of adrenaline, then we attack. Then we unleash our power and our emotion. And when we do that, there's also consequences. People want to withdraw. We actually help create the avoidance that other people do. And it has an impact on our heart and the culture of the organization, etc. So rather than those two issues, let me share a couple of ideas on how to step up and deal with it well. This is our claim. Learn one set of skills, that is how to master crucial confrontations, and you can look forward to significant and lasting change in every problem you choose to confront in every domain of your life. Everywhere. So, let's talk about talking it out. In our research, we identified the worst, the good, and the best. In the worst, teams and relationships, few confront and fewer do it well. We have a whole culture of nice. You know, you've heard maybe of Minnesota nice. You've heard of Southern nice. You've heard of healthcare nice. These are people who don't want to be nasty, but that's not what we're talking about. They don't want to be mean and awful, so they choose to be nice and not speak about issues. The consequence is, when you don't speak about issues, you say it's okay. You vote for the status quo. You give your permission for what's happening, and thus problems persist and accountability disappears. In the good organizations, supervisors or people with power can confront. Having trained hundreds of thousands of people, we know we can train supervisors, parents, to confront, to hold people accountable. But the real distinction is that the best organizations, anyone can hold anyone accountable. That's what we're looking for. in organizations where we can hold anyone accountable, results are better. Now, a lot of people want to rely on performance management systems or the performance appraisal process, and those are necessary but not sufficient. The sufficient process is that people can hold other people at all levels accountable real time right now. Now, there are many skills to doing this, and I'm not going to focus on all of these. I'm going to focus on one. I'm going to focus on diagnosis. Why diagnosis? There's several reasons for this. It helps us be patient. It helps us be patient enough to start off on the right foot. It helps us not to oversimplify and prejudge. It helps us solve motivation problems, it helps us solve ability problems, and it helps us move beyond problem solving to problem prevention. So let me start with a simple case to make these points. Here's the case. You have a coworker who's been late to work the last 3 days. Working hours started at 8, and he shows up 15 minutes late the first day, about 20 minutes late the next day, and today comes in at 23 and a half minutes late. I mean, you're counting now, right? You're disappointed, you're frustrated, you're saying, I have to take his calls, this is not fair, etc. What do most people do? Well, most people, because it's epidemic, they avoid. They say, oh, I don't want to get in an argument, I have to work with him a lot, he'll probably get even if I do this. Sometimes I'm a hypocrite and get a little bit late, and speaking up would be the issue. Doesn't matter what the reason is, if you avoid, you vote for the status quo, you cause additional problem. Sometimes we attack. We say, how could you be late? How could you be late? Now, we talked about that. So what should you do? What you should do is diagnose by asking yourself 2 questions. First one is, he's late, and you say, whoa, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person be late? Have I ever been late? Might he have a good reason? See, now we don't prejudge. Now we don't create in ourselves this kind of assumption and anger that causes us to deal with this ineffectively. The second question is, could it be more complex than I know? Could there be other reasons that he just doesn't care about it? So why is he late? One of the reasons you want to make sure you diagnose is to understand, is it motivation or is it ability? So the person comes in and you say, hey, I noticed you were 15 minutes late. And he said, oh, I ran into a traffic jam. Is that motivation, which says, I don't think it's that important? Or is it ability, which says, I couldn't make it here. I had good intentions, but I couldn't do it. Well, in this particular situation, it's ability. Well, how about if he says, oh, it was kind of hard. Well, see, that one I don't know. I say, are you saying you couldn't make it? Or are you saying that it wasn't that important? And he says, well, it wasn't that important. Come on, it's only 15 minutes. And now I know it's motivation. Motivation, ability, or both, the issue is you solve them very differently. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to solve them right now. I'm just going to teach you how to diagnose, because you solve them very differently. But if it helps me figure out why they're late, if it helps me pause to say, I can't just say he doesn't care, I need to figure out why he's late, then you understand part of the power of diagnosis. Now let me go to a more complex case. You work on a self-directed team. Your team sets goals and builds part of a machine. The team that precedes you in the process is vital to your team's performance. They agree to follow a process that gives you 50 quality parts on time every 75 minutes per shift. Today you received 2 partial allotments, about 45 pieces, and they were about 45 minutes late. The quality is excellent. The senior person in the other department who has 12 more years of experience than you is a stickler for quality. She is also somewhat rude. When she delivered the last allotment, you tried to talk to her, but she said, just be glad we don't deliver crapola, and left before you could talk. She's now coming with the 3rd allotment for the day. It's late and partial. What do you do? What do most people do? Again, they avoid. What's the next thing they do? They would jump to conclusion. They would be offended. How could you possibly do that? But if you were to pause and diagnose, you would say, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do that? And could it be more complicated than I know? Could it be that she has some staff not show up? Could it be she has a machine that's broken down? Could it be that the boss told her, you get quality right every time? That's going on your performance appraisal. So she gets quality right every time, but she gives you fewer parts and it gets them late, but she gets them right. See? How you diagnose that and how you be patient makes all the difference on how you start into that organization. Let me do this. Let me summarize why diagnosis and then go to the fourth point. It helps us be patient, not oversimplify. It helps us solve motivation problem, helps us solve ability problems. It helps us get through that hazardous half moment when someone's looking at you and say, how are they going to respond? Are they going to bring it up? It's important. Are they going to avoid it because it's not important? Or are they going to just lose their temper and prejudge me? The second reason you diagnose is it helps us move beyond problem solving to problem prevention. This is just essential in the long-term accountability in an organization. Once you solve a problem, you describe the gap, you solve motivation problems, you solve ability problems, you determine a specific next plan with who, does what, by when, and follow-up. Then what do? It's time to diagnose again. Moving beyond the problem solving, moving beyond the crisis management to problem prevention and coaching and caring makes such a difference in the relationship you have with people who work with you. For example, let me give you some useful scripts. We've already got a plan on how to solve that problem, but now I say, is there anything we haven't discussed that would help or hinder you getting this done? Or is there anything that could get in the way of you keeping this commitment? What this says is, I not only care about this particular performance problem, it says, I care about you and I care about the environment you're in, and I don't not only care about the present performance, I care about the future performance. So we call that pop the question. We've got a short-term agreement. Is there anything in the long term that would get in the way? Now we've got the effective coach. Now we've got the effective person who really deals well with crucial confrontations. So, we spent this time learning 4 reasons. How to step up to a confrontation, how to have an accountability talk. It helps us be patient, and it helps us not oversimplify by asking, why would a reasonable, rational, decent person do this? And could it be more complex than I know? Solve motivation problems, solve ability problems, and then pop the question so that you get to the future. Then people know that you really care. You know, when people look at crucial confrontations, they often think, ooh, that confrontation word, it's a little scary. If you look at the original root, the original definition of a crucial confrontation, it means a forehead-to-forehead talk, a face-to-face talk to hold someone accountable. As I've thought about that over the year and seen people do it and make enormous changes in their company and in their family, I said, once you get skillful, once you can diagnose, then you have the skill, the relationship, the safety, the moment to be able to talk about tough issues. Because if we avoid them, they won't go away. Time doesn't cure very much. And as I've talked to these people, I remember once a fortune cookie I got that's very descriptive of the people who choose to have crucial confrontations. It said, by Clementine Paddleford, never grow a wishbone where a backbone ought to be.